Greetings, Earthers, Martians, Belters, members of the OPA. Welcome to episode 11 of Expanse, the unofficial podcast. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker, and Nikki is not going to be on the show today, but before you get too sad, let me just say that the reason Nikki's not going to be on the show today is I'm having a couple very special guests on the show. So this is not going to be our regular discuss the most recent episode of the Expanse episode. Instead, today I am having Bob Munroe and Cailin Munroe on to talk about the visual effects of the Expanse. Bob is the visual effects supervisor and Cailin is the visual effects coordinator for the show. So they were kind enough to come on the show and talk about the Expanse with me. And I'm really excited to bring this interview to you. It is a fantastic interview. I think you're going to love it. So we will be back for episode 12. Nikki will be back and we're going to discuss episode 4 of the Expanse, CQB. And we are hoping to get episode 12 out to you within the next couple days. So this episode's coming out on our regular release day of Thursday, December 31st, 2015. And I hope to get episode 12 to you either January 1st or January 2nd. So definitely come back and check your feed for that. And we're going to talk all about CQB. I'm really looking forward to talking about CQB. It was a great episode. But for today, I'm going to talk with Bob and Cailin. So I have with me on Expanse, the unofficial podcast today, Bob Munroe and Cailin Munroe, who work on the visual effects for the Expanse. So welcome to the show, Bob and Cailin, and please start out by explaining to us exactly what you do on the Expanse.
I'm the visual effects coordinator. Basically, I manage all of the companies that are working on the show. So we have the 5 companies and a handful of individuals, and there's just a lot of moving parts, and I kind of make sure that they are well-oiled, to say the least.
That sounds like a very difficult job.
She's the air traffic controller.
It's demanding, but it's a lot of fun, and I don't find it very difficult. I don't know if other people would find that difficult, but I really enjoy it, so I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It's when you're doing something you love, it's always easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Bob, what is your position?
So I am the visual effects supervisor.
Okay.
I also directed a lot of the second unit on the show. So my role is much more creative than some of the other positions. Cailin's is kind of administrative and managerial.
Okay.
Although she has a fantastically creative eye and picks out stuff that Narain Shankar, our showrunner, that Narain and I miss on our very frequent VFX review sessions. But my job is almost primarily creative. As Cailin kind of handles the moving parts of the various VFX companies, I'm dealing directly with their own in-house artists and supervisors, creative directors and such, and kind of overseeing the collective vision of the visual effects for the show. I'll be on set shooting scenes, shooting shots that will go into a visual effects company later on, and making sure that creatively and technically we're in good shape, and then those shots will get into a visual effects company. They'll do a version of a shot, previs or early renders or early comps, and get them to me for notes, and I'll give notes back. And when I'm confident that I think something looks pretty good, then we collect them all in a folder on an FTP site. And every couple of days, although lately it's been every day, Narain and I will get on a phone call at Cinesync. There's a Cinesync, an application called Cinesync, where we can watch the footage simultaneously, synced up in real time.
Oh, wow.
And we'll use Skype, and we review the shots. Narain's in Beverly Hills, and I'm in Ancaster, Ontario, which is outside of Toronto, and it's a flawless system. It works so well. So that's my job. It's kind of creative, overseeing the general scope of work from a visual standpoint in terms of the visual effects.
Awesome. That's really cool. So you said there are 5 different visual effects companies working on the show?
Yeah, I think it's actually 6. We had it encore at the very last minute. So it's 6 plus, called Gizmo Company too. So that makes them 7. And then John Mariella, who did the 0G hair and the bird and the hamster. So it's 8 entities. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
Working on the show.
So I'm curious, how is it decided who does what? Do different companies handle different types of effects, or how is that?
That's actually a fantastic question. I actually, I printed out all the different areas of work, anything from very specific to specific, like let's say the Tachi or the Rocinante or the Canterbury. I put it on I printed it out and cut it up into a little strip, and all the way into general things like liquids and digital blood and all that kind of stuff. And I just started moving it around, kind of like on a war table. And I'd have all the other, all the vendors, the VFX companies' names on my desk, and I just moved this to there and that to there. But the thing that really kind of drove me to award certain things to certain companies wasn't specifically what they were. I thought they were really, really good at. Although I will say, in the case of John Mariella, who was an individual who did, I mentioned a second ago, who did the hair, the 0G hair, and the hamster and the bird. John is world renowned for his character work, so that just immediately went to him. Everything else was kind of distributed based on the fact that I knew that I didn't want to overburden any particular company 2 to 3 episodes in a row.
Okay.
We have 2,500 visual effects shots in this first 10-part series. Wow! And if I was going to give company A, let's say, I'll pull the name of it, Rocket Science. If I was going to get the aptly named Rocket Science, who did the Canterbury and the Tachi and the Rossi and Tycho and Nauvoo, if I was to give them all 250 shots for the first 3 episodes, they would not have been able to deliver. It would have just been too heavy a burden. So the idea was I wanted to find a way to distribute the work more evenly across the season. And for the most part, Cailin, you can jump in here, but I think for the most part it worked out okay.
Yeah, I would agree. We're still working. We're a little bit past our deadline, but that's fine. The work is just speaking for itself. I think it's so incredible, and everyone is loving it, both internally and externally. So I think everyone's fine with us tripping over the deadline a little bit.
Yeah, the effects in the show are just amazing, and to the point that I see a lot of people online calling it hard sci-fi, which I think is a compliment to you guys.
Yeah, I think it's a compliment. It can also be a little bit of a burden because we can't be purely hard sci-fi all the time. We would never be able to tell the story. Something that I going back to one of your podcasts, and you had made mention, I believe, that you wished they had said that. We had said that the flip and burn was going to take 2 days. Actually, Ade does say that.
She does.
The flip and burn happens. She says it's I can get us there within 2 days. So
right. Yeah.
So she does actually say that line. But if we took the time to show it, because to be honest with you, we've done only in the flip and burn. We've done the first part. We flipped and went the one direction.
Right.
We didn't actually show it flipping and stopping.
Right. Yeah.
So which was a decision because we just don't have the time in the show. So we're trying to adhere to hard science or hard sci-fi. But I'm going to go to the fiction part of sci-fi. It is fiction. We're doing our best, but we have to tell a story in 43 minutes. And the person who is absolutely 100% keeping us on track, going back to Narain Shankar, who has a PhD in physics, but he's a showrunner. He's the showrunner on CSI and on Star Trek Next Generation. He's just a brilliant mind. And, we'll get into these hard sci-fi discussions, and then he'll finally go, okay, at this point, we just got to tell the story.
Right.
So we're trying, but we're not perfect.
Yeah, I think that's great. And if the show was totally hard sci-fi, I don't think people would like it very much.
It would tend to get a little bit boring, I think.
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah, as soon as a character starts writing out math equations on a board and explaining to us what's going on, I think we'd lose a lot of people.
You'd lose me, and I'm the biggest fan of the show. So
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm not even sure how to ask this question, but I'm curious where at in the production of the show, like, do you guys get like a request for certain effects? Like when you go to create an effect, how much do you have to go on? Has anything been shot at that point, or?
No, I'm typically on any production I've ever been on. I'm typically one of the first people on and one of the last people off.
Okay.
So I'm there from script development all the way through, on set every day, all the way through post production. We're keeping our fingers crossed for season 2, and it's no secret that the writers' room is very, very active, and outlines and scripts are being developed, and I've seen them from day one for season 2. Like, it's just because it's our show obviously has such a important and critical visual effects component that for me to get on after the fact would be extremely detrimental. I've got to be involved from day one, and case in point. There was an early discussion with the first proto-molecule scene with Julie Mao in episode 1, where she sees her shipmate Darren being absorbed into the proto-molecule. And I guess that's not a spoiler because episode 1 has been seen by 6 million people. One of the early concepts was that it would be a fleeting 1-frame or 2-frame face. Would you see a face? It was one of those things like, did I see that or did I not see that?
Yeah.
And I kept fighting for doing something a little bit more graphic, a little bit more visceral. Uh-huh. And I remember getting into a discussion with Mark Fergus, who's one of our executive producers and writers. And, Mark he's just absolutely awesome. And we were sitting in a boardroom one night and we were chatting. I'm going, because everybody was still trying to convince me just to do the, a single frame face kind of thing. And I said to Mark, here's the thing. If I saw a monster walk into the room right now, I wouldn't really, I kind of go, wow, there's a monster walking into the room, but I wouldn't be necessarily terrified or horrified. But if that monster ripped your head off, then I would be terrified.
Right.
So we need to do kind of the same thing in the first scene with the proto-molecule. We got to show people just how dangerous and horrific this thing can be, because, we don't know where it's going to go in the future. And, everybody finally agreed. But that's that's my long-winded answer to your very, very good question. When do I get involved? I have to get involved very, very soon. Just like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll jump in here too. This is my first sort of big project. I've worked here and there and on some other projects, but I think we started off with about 1,000 shots in pre-production. That was the estimate. Like, okay, here is the rough outline of the effects we're going to do and per episode, and then just stuff keeps adding up. I mean, we see stuff on set and we're like, oh, that needs to be an effect or whatever, and it just snowballs, and it ended up being so much bigger than we had originally thought it would be. So it definitely grew.
Yeah, there are just effects all over the place.
There are so many that you don't even know are effects. Trust me, there are so many shots you would have no idea that they are effects.
Oh, I'm sure. Can you think of an example of something that we probably don't even realize is an effect when we see it?
Well, this is one that people, when they think about it, would know it's an effect. It has to be. But I'm going to tell you or describe a shot from episode 1 where the amount of work that went into it was almost unparalleled. It took 5 people, 4 weeks, so 20-person weeks to do this very, very, very simple, quote unquote, simple shot. And that was Holden and Naomi floating up into the night just before they went off to find the scopuli.
Okay.
And the camera is above them. They were all on wires. They were both on wires. And we had what's called a traveler, which is the device that the wires are attached to.
Okay.
All this stuff went in front of their faces, went in front of the set, and that all not only did the wires have to be removed, and the traveler, it's a big device, it's about the size of a dinner plate or bigger. had to be removed, but they all had to be removed from in front of them and in front of the set, and all that had to be repainted and reconstructed and put back together. So one of my vendors, Keyframe, like I said, they spent 20 person weeks doing that shot, and you just take a look at it and you go, "Wow, yeah, they look like they're floating." Now, of course, you would say that is an effect, because obviously human beings don't float, but I just wanted to give a shout out to that particular kind of thing because it's so seamless that you doesn't even register necessarily.
Right.
But loads and loads and loads of the monitors on the deck of the Canterbury, the deck of the Knight. Lots were playback that were done, and then when we got a little smarter about our storytelling and further into editorial, and we realized that maybe we needed to augment something to tell the story a little bit better, we swapped out those monitors. Some were actually blue screen. So you get, things like that. And then, every now and then you get a shot where there's a speck of dust on the lens and you've got to remove that. And that's a visual effects shot. That can't be done in editorial or in color grading. So, those kind of things get added. There was in one of the episodes coming up, there's, a couple of reflections in glass in a house on Earth. And in those reflections, we saw our full camera crew mirrored completely.
Yeah.
We had to remove them. So you get everything from, the most, complex, crazy thing like a flip and burn down to removing a speck of dust. That's all the visual effects department.
Wow, that's amazing. So you keep mentioning floating. My biggest question, like personal question, where I was like, how on earth did they do that, is when Julie Mao is in 0G and her hair's kind of drifting around her. And I've noticed that a lot of the actors that are in 0G a lot have really short hair, which I think makes sense and I'm sure makes your lives easier. But I just I can't imagine how you did that because it looked really good.
Well, again, I'm going to go back to complimenting John Mariella. That's all him. It's all CG. It's all completely computer-generated hair.
Wow.
John is just one of the world's experts at that. Many, many, many years ago, John and I, we had a company and we produced a film for Disney, an animated film called The Wild. That was all CG animals. John was the animation director and I was a supervising producer on it. And John was the guy who managed, all the technology, developed the technology for the CG hair for that film. Before that, movies like Fly Away Home, CG feathers, and other productions that John and I had done together, where they're creature based. So John was the guy to go to for the hair. So wow. It is. So we had Flo. She was in a hairnet with some green pieces of tape stuck to the hairnet. Those are called tracking markers.
Okay.
So that the software can actually track the motion of her head and replicate it exactly. But she was, you see the before and after, she's in a hairnet and holding down her real hair. And then John took over and did it all in CG and did an amazing job.
Yeah, that was really cool. So did he do the hamster too then?
He did the hamster too. Yep. That
looked completely real.
Yeah, that and John, if I could typecast John as anything, I would say he would be typecast as a rodent guy. One of the very first jobs that we did together in terms of creatures was a movie by the name of Dr. Dolittle with Eddie Murphy.
Oh yeah.
And the talking rats. John did those talking rats. So John does rodents well.
Yeah, if I didn't know better, I would have thought that you just shot a real hamster running in a real wheel, and that's what that was.
Thank you. That's high praise. Thank you.
And the not just like the fur and everything looking right, but the actual motions that it makes looking completely natural. And
again, all credit to John. He just knows how to animate. That man knows how to animate. And it's this might be a question you might ask coming up, but I'm going to kind of preempt it or just go into it early. He also did the floating bird, the flying bird. Yeah. And I'm so thrilled that people are now getting that the bird is moving like that because it's in 1/3 G. Because that was a concern. We're looking at the animation and we studied, I don't know, hours of footage of sparrows flying in real speed, slow motion, all that. And, it was a concern that people wouldn't get it, and people are getting it. Some people aren't. Some people are going, oh, that's the worst animated bird I've ever seen. But others are going, oh, no, now I get it. It's low G. That's why it's basically, the thing weighs 3 ounces and it's kind of hovering in low G, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, that's again, all credit to John. He studied it like crazy. We saw everything from animation that was indistinguishable from a real sparrow on Earth to what we've got on screen, and John was right every step of the way. He's going, no, if we're going to go low G, we've got to do this. Those are those kind of subtleties and nuances, and the things that we spend our time obsessing over that most people just probably wouldn't know happen behind the scenes.
Yeah, I really love the bird. I'm a big fan of the books, and that was a specific thing that when I heard about the show, I was wondering, how are they going to do that? And if they do, how are they going to do it? And right. Is it going to look convincing? And it totally did.
Well, thank you. And in addition to that, the little girl did not look exactly like that in real life. We stretched her, we belterized her.
Oh.
Holding the bird. So if you see a before and after, she does not look as belter as she does when you see the real footage. So we changed her too, and that was rocket science again. Like I said, the aptly named rocket science working on a show like this. They did the Heike Sobong when he's being interrogated by Avasarala. The guy was standing on 2 apple boxes.
Oh, wow.
Apple boxes are they're 9-inch tall boxes, and we painted them blue, and he was standing, the actor was actually standing on the top of those. So we removed them and stretched his legs down and stretched his arms and thinned him out. And it just worked really, really well. And they did the exact same thing to the little girl when she's holding the bird.
Yeah, that the belter being tortured, like, he was so real, it was creepy.
Well, he's also a fantastic actor. We were blessed with so many amazing actors that were found and sourced. I make it sound like they're a product. I'm sorry about that. They're found locally in Toronto while we were shooting, like Sarah Medic, who played Gia, the prostitute, and Greg Brick, who's Lopez. People. Our gaunt belter Kyle and Joe, who played the belter. Just amazing performers, and we were lucky to find them.
Now I got to ask, in the second episode, I believe, when Avasarala is interrogating him in the tank, now is he actually in water, or is that all effects?
He is actually in water,
okay.
And that is a tank that was sourced from another. That way, this way, I can use the word source because it is a product sourced from another TV show. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I can't recall off the top of my head. But anyway, we changed it digitally to make it not look the same. But it was an actual tank, and when you do that kind of thing, you have to have a dive master on set. And coincidentally enough, the dive master on set that day when we were shooting that scene was the guy who certified me as a scuba diver. So it was a nice little coincidence that happened on the day.
Well, that's awesome. You scuba dive. That's got to be somewhat like going out in space.
It is about the most amazing experience you can possibly imagine, because it is exactly that. You are flying and floating out in space. It is just so cool. I was very fortunate to be able to direct the opening 5 minutes of a movie a few years ago called Dolphin Tale, which was also produced by Alcon, the same company that produces The Expanse. And spent 5 days down in the Cayman Islands scuba diving and shooting the opening sequence. Some of the most amazing scenery you could possibly imagine, and a wonderful experience in my career. So yeah, diving is just like being out in space.
Awesome.
I can only imagine. I mean, I've never been out in space, but I can imagine being out in space.
So my next question, actually, this was Nikki's question. What was the biggest challenge as far as making the visual effects for the show?
Would you say the biggest challenge in terms of schedule or budget, or just creative challenge? Like, what would be how would you?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, because I can go in so many directions with that answer.
Right. I don't know. I guess whichever was the most challenging.
I'll answer all of them kind of, because
okay.
this is not a sitcom. It's not a show where you just take a look at two people talking in a room and you can easily cut that together. So much of this show was created in post. So that compromised our schedule in a big way. We had hoped to be finished many weeks before now, but you can't necessarily say that the show is done until you see very advanced visual effects and VFX scenes being put into the edit, so that you know that it's actually working. So that's that's not unexpected in a VFX heavy show, but it does become a challenge to try to adhere to some sort of schedule that doesn't blow the budget. So that goes into budget. Again, as Cailin mentioned a few minutes ago, we originally had predicted about 1,000 or so visual effects shots over the course of the season, and now we're 2.5 times that. So that, of course, that becomes a big challenge. Yeah. How do you manage the budget, and how do you pay for it effectively? Because the budget for the show has been predetermined. It's not like it's an open vault and you just keep going in and out and collecting as much money as you want. Yeah. But I would say creatively, the biggest challenge has been, Cailin, you can tell me if you agree with this or not, the proto-molecule. Because everybody has a completely different interpretation of what that is and what it becomes. And it has such resonance for later seasons. So I don't know if you want.
Yeah, I would think the proto-molecule, there has been a lot of different opinions and visualizations that everyone has come up with, and it's definitely evolved and looped back around to what it was before and evolved some more, and it's definitely the biggest challenge, I think.
Yeah, you guys were talking about the shot in the first episode where we see it for the first time, and I'm really glad that you were able to make it more than just a frame, because I thought that shot worked really well. And I think if there would have been any less, we would have been really mystified as to what we were even looking at. I think some of us probably still are mystified as to what we were looking at.
I think probably most people are, but that's okay.
Right.
This series demands your attention. You can't be a casual viewer of this series and think you're going to get it. Episode 1 confused people. Episode 2 confused, and all of a sudden, episode 3, people are going, "Okay, now I'm starting to get it." And 4, "Oh, yeah, I see kind of where this is intriguing." It demands your attention, just like Game of Thrones does, just like West Wing did, just like Breaking Bad did. You can't be a casual observer.
And I would say it's probably easier for the readers of the books to understand, especially when it comes to the proto-molecule. I'm not going to say any sort of spoilers here, but people who have read the books know what happens, and
right.
I think it's a little easier to have that background after you've read the books to understand the episodes.
Yeah, and it's fun to have mysteries that are revealed later. You can be like, "Oh, that's what that was in episode 1."
Exactly. Yeah. If people stick with it, they will be rewarded. Trust me on this one.
Yeah.
There are big rewards coming, but you got to stick with the show.
And I guess if there's anyone listening that is confused, I would just say watch it again, because I've been watching every episode at least twice since I'm doing, a podcast about it. So I watch it once just to enjoy it, and then I watch it again and take notes. And well, I've only watched the first 3 episodes so far, but with each one, that second time I watch it, like there's so much that kind of fits together that I didn't really catch the first time. And I'm like, oh, now this makes more sense.
Yeah. I think both of us over here will agree on this. We have watched the episodes so many times and we are still finding new things. So I definitely think the audience will catch a lot that they missed if they rewatch the episodes. Yeah,
and there are many Easter eggs that have been put into this. Some just little fun things from me personally to the writers we've thrown in there. But you've said that you've watched the first 3 episodes. You haven't watched episode 4. I need you to get back in touch with us after you watch episode 4 and tell us what you think, because it will blow your mind. It will blow your mind. It's an amazing episode, and Narain wrote that one. And that goes even back to your question about when do I get involved and how early and all that. One of the first drafts of the script, it had there are soldiers that appear, and I won't go into because I don't want to spoil it for you or for anybody else who hasn't seen episode 4. But there's some soldiers in the script that had them running up on the ceilings and on the walls and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
And in 0G, and I pointed out to Narain that in the script, they weren't actually under 0G at that point. And he goes, yes, they are. And I said, no, just read your own script. And he went back to the script and went, oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, so we have to rethink this. We have to rethink how we're going to shoot this visually. So that's kind of the great relationship that we have now is we really do look at things quite critically and quite analytically. And try to make sure that we're not making any egregious errors. And when you see this episode, you're going to go, well, I think they got that right.
Awesome. Well, I have to say personally, the thing I'm most looking forward to seeing is the Rosie, because that's just one of my favorite characters in the book.
Yeah, and it actually is a character. It's really funny that people, there are a few people online are saying, how come there aren't any robots in the show?
Uh-huh.
They're the spaceships. Everything's a robot. Everything has artificial intelligence. You will see the Rosie do things that Alex Kamal, the pilot, doesn't actually actuate. The Rosie does it on its own.
Awesome.
These ships are intelligent beings, and they do things that they've been kind of programmed to do, and they program themselves to do. So they, the ships, Ty actually told me that. Ty said, no, that, we do have robots. They're the ships.
And if you're paying attention, there are drones flying around in lots of scenes.
Yeah.
Yep, there certainly are.
And when they dock with the Donager, there's a robotic arm that brings the ship in, which I thought was so much cooler than a tractor beam.
Yeah. Yeah, we like to go mechanical when we can. It's more visually interesting. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because you can't really see a tractor beam. It's just like some light, if there's anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Tractor beams are cheaper than mechanical arms in terms of visual effects cost, but
right.
we like going for the visuals.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hoping we see a really good shot of the Donager soon. I think there was a pretty good one in episode 3, because I know in the second one, we didn't get like a good wide angle shot, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see the whole thing.
You will get your Donager fill in episode 4.
Oh, awesome. Yep. Yeah, I gotta get caught up. Awesome. What else? I'm tapped out here.
Well, yeah, I think you've been extremely thorough. Kudos to you. That's been a very, very good interview. I just want to say, typically when I do interviews like this, people say, well, is there anything else you have to add? And more often than not, I'm going, yeah, I don't really have. I think you're fine. The one thing I do have to add is that the crew and the cast of this show are the most amazing and fantastic people I've ever worked with. So many of the crew I've worked with in the past, and so happy to work with them again. But new people like Ty and Daniel and Mark and Hawk and Narain, just phenomenal. The visual effects companies have been absolutely world class, and so many of the cast have become good friends of mine. Stephen and Kaz and Dominique and Wes, Sheree. They're just wonderful. They're actually really wonderful people, which might hurt us because they're probably not going to cause a lot of controversy in their private lives, which that always gets you press. But no, they're just everybody's been just amazing to work with. It's such a fantastic show to be on, and I am probably the luckiest geek fanboy on the face of the planet being able to do this.
Awesome. Well, hopefully there'll be many, many seasons of this show.
Are we not keeping our
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope so. My bank account hopes so. No, it's a really, really incredible show. And I think everyone at the end of every production, other productions, not just this one, always says, oh, these are the best people. But this time we mean it. We mean it. It's been incredible.
Well, I'm a total behind the scenes junkie. And so when the inevitable, DVD sets for the seasons come out, I hope they have lots of stuff in there about the crew and behind the scenes stuff and how things were done. That'd be awesome to see.
Yeah, me too. That would be, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I think that'll happen. Alcon is typically very, very, very good about that kind of thing. And they've already interviewed so many of us. That also, brings me to another point. Very often, marketing on a show like this is not as good as it could be, and the Sci-Fi Network has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Matthew Chiavelli and Matt Romano and Bill Eichen and all these people at Sci-Fi, NBC Universal, who I'm working with on a daily basis, doing trailers and promos and the VR app and the companion application that you can see while you're watching the show, and even things like social media and 3D printing and all that. They've been just wonderful people to work with. Sci-Fi has thrown their full weight behind this show, and I don't think they get enough credit. I think they get vilified because people in Germany can't watch the episode. It's not, that's Sci-Fi doesn't own that territory. They can't make it available in Germany. They own the United States.
Right.
But they've done everything they can to put their weight behind the show, and they've been a remarkable partner. So Alcon and Sci-Fi, I have no doubt when it comes to the DVD time, will create something quite fantastic for us.
They're definitely giving Star Wars a run for their money in marketing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was much more excited for this show than I am for Star Wars, and I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan.
I used to be until this show came along.
Yeah, exactly. Seems a little more grown up, should I say?
Yeah, exactly. It's more grown up, accessible. It feels like it's us.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm watching science fantasy with this show. I feel like I'm watching science fiction, but not science fantasy.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Well, one thing that I think is really cool, it's not unheard of now for networks to have some episodes of their show available on their website for you to watch. A lot of times it's like maybe the most 2 recent episodes, but this is the first time I've seen that before you can even watch it on TV, where they have the first 4 episodes up right now that you can just binge watch, which is awesome.
I think it's really just indicative of the way things are going. I mean, everyone watches everything on their computers. Cable, in my opinion, is kind of going downhill, and I think they're trying to play to that development.
They've recognized that this is viable. I talked to Narain yesterday during our VFX review, and he had just gotten out of a meeting at Alcon, and everybody's thrilled with the fact that when you combine the online viewers with the on-air viewers, over 6 million people saw the first episode, and you can't just say that the online doesn't count. It absolutely counts. When you have 4.4 million people online watching episode 1, that's huge. To put it into perspective, if 6 million people went to the opening day of a movie, that's a $70 million opening.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's our full credit to Sci-Fi for having the balls to do that. They did the right thing. They absolutely did the right thing.
And I think it's got to be good for them too, because those metrics for the online views are a lot more reliable than ratings and figuring out how many people are watching on the air.
Absolutely. 100%. Yep.
So hopefully we'll see a lot more of this with other networks and other shows, because I think it's great.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? It's just kind of cool. And so I get to see things online, but my wife and I still watch them when they air every Tuesday night. Like on the Space Channel here in Canada, we still tune in. So they're getting the best of both worlds. I mean, you get people that are watching it online, and people are going, I want to see that again on air, because the on air experience is, that's when I know that another million people are watching it simultaneously with me. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and you need to watch these at least twice anyway. So
do you ever? Oh, yeah. or 30 times like me. It's like Narain and I got on the review last night, and he was about 15 minutes late to the effects review, and I'm just kind of sitting there waiting for him to call in, and I was watching episode 1 again just because I love the show. I love episode. So I was just watching episode 1 again. I mean, I can recite every line.
Awesome.
But it's just so good that I had to watch it again.
I definitely plan once the 10th episode is out to go rewatch the whole season again.
It's a good binge watch show for sure.
Yeah. And then I'm sure I'll watch season 1 again right before season 2 comes out, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. I think many people are going to be doing exactly what you just described.
Yeah, and I do that with Game of Thrones too, because in a similar way, there's so much going on that you kind of have to refresh yourself, because it's been a few months downtime or whatever. So, Well, was there anything else? Have we covered it? I don't want to keep you guys too long.
No, I think we're good. I think one of the things, one of our objectives here was to give a shout out and acknowledgement to the visual effects companies that are working on this. So I'm gonna what's that? There's good. Cailin she's encouraging me to name them, so I am going to name them.
Okay.
So Atmosphere in Vancouver, Encore in Vancouver. In Toronto, we have Spin, Rocket Science, and Switch. In St. Catharines, Ontario, which is near Niagara Falls, we have Keyframe, Stony Creek, Ontario, which is between Niagara Falls and Toronto, John Mariella, and then two guys who started off as individuals in the effects department as compositors, Mark Thomas Stubbs and Paul de Oliveira, are now a company called Gizmo, and they're based out of Toronto. So all these companies, when you see the work on the screen, that's them. They get all the credit. I'm just lucky to be on the journey with them.
Awesome. Well, I am happy to talk with anybody involved on the crew because, obviously the actors get a lot of the glory, but
Right.
There'd be no show without all the other people, the masses of people involved behind the scenes.
Well, there's certainly a few that I can maybe recommend later on. I won't throw their names out there right now in case they don't want me to. But there are some people that Cailin and I can text you and encourage you to reach out to, or I'll encourage them to reach out to you because there's some phenomenally talented people on the crew, and I think that some of the other heads of department would be very happy to be interviewed by you and be on your podcast, which brings me to the final point that I want to make. Awesome job on the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Cailin turned me on to it a couple of months ago. I know you guys call yourself the Unofficial podcast, but I can tell you now that it's about as official as you could possibly get. We all listen to it.
Oh, wow.
I was one of the first, I think. I think Ty or Daniel tweeted about it, and I immediately clicked on it, and I was hooked. Yeah,
so we're all listening to it, and we appreciate it. Thanks to you and Nikki for carrying the torch for us, because it means so much when fans appreciate what we do. I mean, we can blow our own horn all the time, as much as we want. It doesn't have the same resonance as when someone like you or someone like Nikki or other people, fans on Reddit and Twitter, talk about the show. So just thank you. I become a huge fan. I've listened to every episode except the Charade episode. I haven't listened to that yet, which I don't understand because I love Charade. So I'm a little bit behind, but excellent job. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you. We love doing it. And one of the reasons I really wanted to do the show is I want everybody to see The Expanse. And I think that this is a show that even people that would normally say, oh, I don't like sci-fi, could really get into. So anything I can do to spread the word or maybe convince someone that wouldn't have tried it to try it is great.
Well, you're doing yeoman's work, and it's really appreciated.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'll be sure to let Nikki know.
Okay, please do. Yes, please let her know.
Well, thanks so much to both of you for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for reaching out. This was fun.
Yeah.
It's nice to talk about something that we're so passionate about. I really, I'm sure that comes across. Yeah,
and I'd love to do this again sometime if you have the time. When there's more we can talk about without spoiling things. That would
Absolutely.
be awesome.
Well, we'll be finished the effects on episodes 9 and 10 by about Tuesday.
Wow.
So anytime after that, we're done. So until season 2.
Awesome. And if just because of the timing, if you guys want to get together and talk about something and tell me, hey, don't release this until such and such a date, I can totally do that.
Okay, absolutely. That sounds good.
And you're not going to spoil me too much because I've read all the books. I'm sure that there's going to be differences, but that's all right.
I just don't want to spoil it for you in terms of the visuals because
right.
I've just finished Cibola Burn. I haven't started Nemesis Games yet, but the action scenes in episode 4 are a little bit more visually fleshed out than they were in terms of words on the page in Leviathan Wakes. So cool. Yeah, we hit all the same points. We absolutely do. But we just take a little bit more creative license in terms of making it more cinematic. So that's why I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you guys have some awesome effects in your future that you're going to get to do.
Oh, yes. Are we ever? That's why I'm talking about, when I'm saying without spoiling anything, the proto-molecule, that's why it's so difficult because that has to, that has resonance for a long time. So we have to make sure we're doing it right to start, because if we don't, then we're going to be doing it wrong to end. So
yeah.
And well, everybody wants Bobbie Draper. Everybody wants.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And Ty has shown me who he wants to cast.
Oh, cool.
From a visual perspective, as
sure.
a person who's never acted before, but when when I wrote Bobbie Draper, this is who I pictured. And awesome. if this woman can actually turns out is available and can act, she would be she'd be like Brienne on Game of Thrones.
Okay.
We're not going to cast her because she's. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say that. That was stupid of me to say. No, we're not going to cast her. But she doesn't have Bobbie Draper's from the South Pacific.
Right. Right.
So there's a certain look, I guess, that we're after. But if we're successful in casting the right person for Bobbie Draper, you will not be disappointed. It's just
awesome.
As Ty says, I want a woman to play this role who would kick my ass in an alley fight.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if you ever want to just see a huge discussion come out of nowhere, just go on to like Reddit or something and ask, who do you think should be Bobbie Draper? And
yeah, exactly. You're right. I've been on Reddit quite a lot over the last week or so, and that is a question that I'm sure if I did pose, it would be well discussed.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ty wrote a great article on, I think it was on Daniel's blog like some time ago about the whole, tall can't act thing and kind of what they're thinking behind the casting. That was really great. So I don't think anyone who read that is really worried.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think people, at least some people, will be relieved to know that, they are going to try to find someone that looks the part, so to speak.
Very much so. Very much. Yep. I've never seen, any other character, the anticipation of any other character being so widely discussed as Bobbie. She's an absolutely critical role.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe part of it's because she's in what would so often be like a role played by a man.
Yes.
And I think people are really excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the character as fleshed out, pun intended, by Ty and Daniel in the books. That is, she's just a remarkable character. You can't get enough. And there's a scene. I'm not going to talk about it because it would be a spoiler. But there's a scene with her in. There's a scene that the way Ty and Daniel described it became kind of my. I don't know, the level of understanding of what the belt, the people, the inhabitants of the belt, inhabitants of Mars, what they are missing by not having been on Earth, and the way they wrote it, I already know how we're going to shoot it. Like I can see it.
Awesome.
The words were so perfect that I could see it in my head how it's going to happen. So, I'm looking forward to the introduction of Ms. Draper.
Awesome. Me too. It also helps that she's just a badass. Everybody likes a badass.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I'm really glad you guys could do this. This is great.
Yeah, thank you. I've enjoyed myself, and I would love to do it again when we can talk about more episodes and more effects from future episodes. Yeah,
definitely. Drop me a line when you have some time and you're ready to come back. That would be awesome.
That sounds good, Lex. Really appreciate the invitation to do this and to let us talk about the VFX, because they are very instrumental to the show. They're critical to the show, and we've got so many 120 people doing them that they just don't get enough credit. And thank you for giving us the forum to talk about it.
Yeah, anytime. They deserve the credit. It's awesome. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for episode 11. I want to once again thank Bob and Cailin for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. I had a great time talking to you both, and this is definitely my favorite episode so far. I've been forgetting to give our contact information the last few episodes. So if you would like to email us, you can email us at expansepodcast@gmail.com. Our website is at starwalkerstudios.com, and you can find the show notes there. You can also find the other podcasts that Starwalker Studios produces at starwalkerstudios.com. I am on Twitter at Lex Starwalker. Nikki's on Twitter at Nikki Starwalker. I'm on Google plus Lex Starwalker. Nikki's on Google plus Nikki Starwalker. I think that's all the stats that I've been forgetting to give. So again, we'll be back in a day or two with episode 12, in which we will discuss the fourth episode of the Expanse CQB. So definitely check your feeds and download that extra episode this week. I hope everybody has a great new year, and I hope that you all conserve your oxygen and your water, because, resources are precious in the outer solar system. See you next time.